Interesting. I've never been to UK. I'd love to go there, but what do you find like? What are like differences? Are there differences
for education?
Between? Yeah, curriculum.
Yeah, definitely some. It's interesting. The first thing, like the one that would stand out more than anything, would be. I think it's still the case. They have what's called the GCSEs, and so it's standardized tests. High school formally ends at grade 11. You don't go to college or university after grade 11. But it kind of splits out. You familiar with Quebec and CEGEP at all?
I'm not.
Okay, so like Quebec's kind of like that too. Like high school's grade 11. And then you kind of branch into, like, say, a college path or a university path for another year or two of high school, and then that's what kind of guides you off. The UK, they have that too, but the biggest thing is, so GCSEs is a standardized test that everyone in the UK writes. And at the same time, same date. So if you did like grade 10 lit test here, right? You know what I mean? That?
Yeah.
Think of that, but for all of your grade 11 courses, and that's really all that matters for deciding your path after that.
Interesting.
And it's a test that like everyone takes, same day, same time, same test. And so they kind of teach the test a lot too. Like grade 10 and grade 11 is really focused on preparing you for these big exams you take at the end of grade 11,
right?
For all your classes. And this was a really high stakes law on that. And they've been looking at evolving that and whether that's the best way to go about things or not. I say that would be one of the key things. Their schedule's a little different. Same number of instructional days. Like we have 194 days, school days a year here. They have the same. But I actually like their schedule more. Summer's only about 5 or 6 weeks. But
really?
The whole school year is like think of it 2 semesters like you'd have here still, but it's broken into 3 equal chunks. And the way it works is essentially you're in class for 6 weeks, you're off for 1 week, in class for 6 weeks, off for 2 weeks. And you go through that model 3 times. I like it a lot. I think it's great. That's the one thing I would take from the UK and bring over here would be that. We could go on like a whole conversation about it. They have other things. It's really messy. So we've got really strong public education here in Ontario.
Right.
On average, the UK can't compare. Like even in London, it's nothing close to the system we have here. So they have a lot more private institutions and a lot of parents pushing for private. We also, with our public systems, like, you know, your address decides what school you're going to.
Right.
Less so there, even in the public system. So like students apply after, because high school's 7 to 11, grade 7 to 11, and so parents apply to schools in grade 6. There's way more government regulation and oversight, so they have like teams of people that come into schools for like 3 or 4 days and evaluate the school and put a rating on the school on behalf of the government.
Really?
And then also all of those standardized tests get published publicly too, and so your scores on those. And so whoever's got the top scores and the top government ratings, everyone's parents applies to have their kids go to that school, even in the public system. And so it kind of creates a top end and a lower end, right? So think of like, you know, like let's say here in KW had that model. You could go to any of the 16 high schools we have, and we have these standardized tests at the end of grade 12 here, and whatever school gets the top scores on that gets published. Now, every parent in whatever region will be like, I want my kid to go to the school with the top scores. So you take all the best and brightest out of grade 6 and send them to one high school. Well, I mean, it's not like things dramatically change over 4 years, right? So
of course.
If you did that, the highest achieving kids in grade 6 are usually some of the highest achieving kids at the end of grade 12, right? And then it just creates this weird inequality of this like weird basing. And also then you take the kids who are maybe struggling the most in grade 6 and you throw all of them in one school together. Which is not a right or wrong necessarily, but it's an interesting dynamic of doing things.
That is very interesting. I'm very curious as to how like social structures in schools would actually be compared to a higher performing versus a lower performing.
Totally. And a lot of stress. Like the school I was at the time, they were on like, you got a notice to improve. So their test scores were low, and they had that government body come in the year before and not give them a positive rating. And in the UK, if you get like multiple negative scores from that government rating, they actually close the school.
Really?
Yeah. Again, and it's like, so we're closing this down and we'll open up another school somewhere else and we'll start over with a new administrator and they can hire the teachers they want. It's a really...
Isn't that way more expensive than just firing?
You might think so. Or again, how do you bring people in? It's just, it's a really, really different system. And again, I'll preface with saying, like, I mean, it's been 13, 14 years since I was there. I don't think it's changed dramatically. Nothing in education changes quickly, usually. So